What's Google up to? Well, they just revealed plans for a $24 billion investment in infrastructure. So Meta announced they're hiring for their superintelligence team. They're building up, they're spending billions acquiring the new folks in order to bring them into the team. And guess what? Meta is cutting 600 AI jobs in that team now. OpenAI released a browser, and it's called Atlas. I would put this in the category of there's not really a consensus yet on whether it's... Hey everybody, welcome back to the AI Show. I'm Scott, and we're here to talk about what just happened in the last couple weeks. AI is moving fast. I get it. There's ups and there's downs. So Meta, maybe 6 months ago, 5 months ago, four months ago, it wasn't that long ago, announced that they were acquiring Scale AI. They're hiring for their super intelligence team. They're building up. They're spending millions or billions acquiring the new folks in order to bring them into the team. And guess what? Meta is cutting 600 AI jobs in that team now, that super intelligence lab. I don't know. This is kind of par for the course for Facebook, for Meta. They do wild things. They make big moves. They adjust quickly if they notice that something isn't working the way that they want. I'm not 100% sure what is behind all of this, but you could see how if you you hire around 1,000 people for your super intelligence lab, the super intelligence lab that you just have laying around in your home, you could see if you hired 1,000 people for that, how maybe after a while you'd be like, you know what, I don't know, maybe we don't need half of these people because, well, it's normal business reasons, but also maybe you're creating super intelligence and their skills aren't needed anymore. So I doubt that's actually what's happening, that they have created super intelligence and now they're offing people at the company, but it's probably more like, whoa, we thought this would happen faster than it's going to, and it's definitely not going to, so we're going to spend less money on it. But guess what? We still got the headlines about the superintelligence lab, and when everybody still knows about it, and there are people still applying to it, and so, hey, we'll get our pick of the litter for all the PhDs and people who are working on AI to come work here. So the PR team, good job on that. The strategy behind this with laying off a whole bunch of people, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I know the statements were something like Alexander Wang, who's the chief AI officer, former CEO of Scale, the data company that they bought, not really an AI company that they bought, but nevertheless, he was saying, hey, we're cutting heads in order to make everybody there more load bearing. What that typically means is, they're trying to cut costs, and they have some folks on their team that they think they don't need anymore. So we'll see what happens with that. What other PR will come out from that? Who knows? But the saga continues with Meta Superintelligence Lab. What's Google up to? Well, they just revealed plans for a $24 billion investment in infrastructure. Some of it's in the U.S. It's in Iowa and Oregon, and they're investing in some cooling infrastructure that will be tailored to AI model training. But they're also investing in Europe for new data hubs in Finland and Belgium, and they're focusing on a green energy way to do AI. Admirable. They should be doing that. It's a great idea. And in Asia Pacific, where they're building a state-of-the-art campus in Singapore that's designed to handle AI-driven digital economies across Southeast Asia. I'm not exactly sure what that really means, but I guess it means, hey, it's a place to hang out, bring in the talent, and we'll figure it out. Come on campus, people. We're hiring, we're building up the team, and we're building up the infrastructure in order to support AI in APAC. They say at the heart of it, there's a single mission to power AI's compute through exponential growth. And Google's fourth generation TPUs, and keep in mind, they love these TPUs. They're very happy about the fact that they create their own chips. The chips are powerful, but they're not any more powerful than NVIDIA's or anything like that. They're just another competitor in the market. They're building these distributed frameworks in order to train the models, and they think they'll be able to train their models about 50% faster, but reducing power consumption 30%. I have no doubt, okay? These models and the way that they're trained it's not extremely optimized. They kind of just go big and they're like, we'll figure it out later. Well, now they're in the we'll figure it out later stage, okay? They're saying, hey, we can do it faster and we can do it cheaper. Great, awesome. We all knew this was coming. Wonderful to see, because that wastes less energy, it wastes less water and cooling in training these models. And so we're getting into kind of the realist phase of AI right now. It's all happening very fast, but that's what's happening. So yeah, I mean, I think just a quick takeaway here is that the huge infrastructure bet here that Google is making is not a surprise, and the fact that they're kind of not betting as much on consumer apps, not a surprise. They're saying, wait a second. We have the Gemini model, like the LLM model, is really successful for B2B and as an underlying alternative to LLM APIs like ChatGPT or like Anthropic, etc. Gemini is doing really well. And the consumer products that Google builds, not typically doing all that well. And so now they're thinking, wait a minute, let's put more money into the B2B LLM building and scaling it up across the world. Smart move, smart business move. On to a major controversy. The claim from ChatGPT or from about GPT-5 being able to solve these unsolved Erdos problems is being brought into question. So the DeepMind CEO calls the math breakthrough, or as they say in the UK, maths breakthrough, claim of leading OpenAI researchers are embarrassing. So OpenAI claimed with GPT-5 that they solved 10 of the Paul Erdos's like unsolved problems. There's a website out there called erdosproblems.com. You can look it up. There's a bunch of like unsolved problems from this extremely intelligent mathematician. The OpenAI team said, hey, we know how we're going to get amazing PR. We know how we're going to get great press here. Let's go solve some of those unsolved problems with our LLMs. Right? So they solved some of those problems and then they published it and said, hey, we solved 10 unsolved problems. Sounds great, right? Apparently, they already had solutions. And the claim here, is that GPT-5 just found those solutions and then claimed them as their own. And then now it's a pretty embarrassing thing if that's actually what happened. So the idea here that LLMs are going to make net scientific or research progress is being called into question. Now, my take on this, kind of give me a break a little bit. Of course, they're going to cherry pick. Of course, they're going to go after these things. Of course, there's going to be some slippage, where they're like, oops, some of these were already solved and some of them were not. I think the idea, though, that LLMs or intelligent AI systems are not going to be able to make research progress, only humans will be able to do that. That's pretty insane. There's so much grunt work, just turning the crank type work in research land. In fact, that's most of research is just turning the crank on something that it's kind of already known how you would do the experiment or the assay or whatever. But now you just have to go turn the crank to do it. Well, AI is going to help with that a lot. Now, some of the most creative things, like solving these Erdos problems or, other types of things, yeah, maybe those won't be as easily solved with these frontier LLM models or, space models or anything that people are working on today. But that's today. These things are going to advance. They're going to get memory. They're going to get bigger context. They're going to, it'll be a year from now and we'll saying, well, that's over now. The Erdos problems are getting solved left and right. Yes, controversy. Yes, right to call it out. Yeah, they're right to call it out. But it's just a matter of time, I think, until we're just sort of checking them off the list and saying what next. Next up on the chopping block, NVIDIA. So last couple times we talked about NVIDIA and how they are investing in a bunch of companies. That's happening. This is really caught fire in press and YouTube videos, etc. Everybody really likes this incestuous story and they're going to town. But this is how investment works. Like if you're NVIDIA and you have a pile of cash and people keep giving you more and more cash and you don't know what to do with it, there's only a few things you can do as a company. You can hire more people and they're probably thinking we don't need to hire more people. We hire more, but we don't need to hire 30x as many people at NVIDIA. That they don't want to do that. Okay, well, what else do you do with the money? Well, maybe buy more factories to build more GPUs. Well, guess what? They don't own factories to build GPUs. They actually just design the chip and then TSMC builds those, etc. So they're not going to put their money there. So they have this cash building up. One of the easiest ways to get rid of large sums of money is to just go invest them in companies, okay? And this is what endowments across the world do. This is what hedge funds do. This is what good. All these big piles of money do. They go invest in like growth stage companies or even early stage companies, and they do it $1 million or $100 million or $1 billion at a time. So it's not weird that NVIDIA is investing in companies. I think what people are calling into question, though, is are they sort of investing in good faith? And I think absolutely. Like, come on. They see the usage of the GPUs. They see the work product that is produced by these companies, and they have the closest connection with them. So I think it's hard for folks kind of outside of the core model building and infrastructure building to see exactly how it works. But NVIDIA knows how well you're doing as a company. They can see by the effects. You're buying GPUs, you're doing inference. Customers are coming to them all the time saying, "Ooh, can I work with the companies that have the most traction, that have the best audio models, video models, image models, etc." NVIDIA is sort of the broker and partner in this, so they see what's happening. So them putting money in these companies to help them to help them grow faster, not weird at all. Guess what? It's going to sell more GPUs. This is a very very smart move for them. Now, are you going to have some duds? Absolutely. When these investors get in this mode of like, let's do $1 billion here, $4 billion there, 500 million there, 200 million there, et cetera, they get whipped up into this frenzy of just like, like lemming-like, or what's the hot thing now? Let's get in that. What's the other hot thing? Let's get in that, et cetera. Don't get me wrong. That type of thing happens. But there's real value being created all over the place in B2B, in consumer land, et cetera. So they're going to do just fine in their investments. I don't believe on the whole those investments will collapse or anything like that. I do think that some of them are not going to work out, or they're not going to have the return that they're hoping for. Absolutely, that will be normal. Right now, I wouldn't put the amount of NVIDIA investment that is happening on any scale of like worrisome or something. Like it's actually kind of small. And remember how this is done, like with OpenAI, where they say it's up to a large dollar amount. Well, they're starting at a much lower dollar amount, and then they will scale up as needed. It's cool. It makes a great headline. It makes a great YouTube video. You can draw circles. You can have, Charlie Day like pointing at the screen and like, look, it's crazy. I'll look at all the connections, etc. But yeah, you can do that. But it doesn't mean that there isn't a real thing happening here. There absolutely is a real thing happening, and it's messy. So there's other investment that's happening. About $625 million has been invested in early stage startups just in the last little bit. And this is according to Crunchbase data. There's $312 million in Series A funding, $279 million in seed stage, and then pre-seed of $34 million. If you know how this investment works, like the pre-seed is typically like $50,000, maybe up to $500,000 or something like that you get as investment. And so it's little chunks, and all of that adding up to $34 million is pretty significant. And then the seed stage deals adding up to a lot, and then the Series A adding up to a lot. This is a big deal. And there's incubators out there inking new AI funds. AI2 incubator is one of them. There are tons of venture capital firms that are sort of getting their sea legs, I would say, in AI. Most of these, let's be honest, people. Most investors don't understand AI yet. They're understanding it better now. That's good. They're over the last like 2, 3 years, they've been putting in the work they've been paying their tuition to get better at AI. But listen, SaaS, it took let's be generous. It took 15 years for investors to understand SaaS, okay? SaaS started around the year 2000. By the year 2010, there were, 10%, 20% of venture investors understood SaaS. They were making a lot of money, okay? They're investing in Salesforce, they're investing in all those types of companies. But like I said, 10, 20% of them understood it. It took another probably 5 to 10 years for the blog posts to be written, for the echo chamber to happen, for everybody to be trained up in the important metrics for a SaaS company. That is a SaaS company, SaaS. AI companies are different. Data matters. The margin structure will be different. The payback will be different. The infrastructure investment will be different. One great thing about SaaS was that there's basically no infrastructure investment, right? Well, AI, huge infrastructure investment, right? But anyway, so investors are still trying to take the SaaS learnings that they had from the past 20 years and apply them to AI. They've been trying to do that over the last 3 years. I'll tell you, it worked out in a mixed way. If you're just going based on like seat selling momentum, 2 or 3 years ago, your investments are in the red now, probably. Okay. If you're going based off infrastructure and usage-based B2B usage type companies, that's probably going really well for you right now. But all of these things haven't been codified yet, and the echo chamber hasn't formed for investors yet. And so they're all just paying their tuition right now and getting their funds in line, getting their LPs, their limited partners. Okay, here's another thing. Investors, it's not their money. It's other people's money, okay? The limited partners give them money. Endowments give them money. High net worth, rich individuals give them money. And the investors, it's not their money, but they're the custodian of that money. They have to go out and do the investments. But think about this. You have rich people across the world, large funds across the world that don't really understand what's going on, right? And they're saying, hey, I want to make a return on my money. I'll give it to you, venture capital investors. Venture capital investors from previous 20 years that have established themselves are saying, I have an amazing SaaS playbook. And then everybody gives them the money for that. And then they're like, wait, an AI revolution is happening right now. The intelligence revolution is happening. And now they have to kind of shoehorn those funds and the ideas that they have for how to invest in companies into an AI way of investing. Now, all of that is starting to actually mature in a better way. So they're starting to raise funds that are AI focused. They're starting to educate their LPs about how AI investing is going to go. Now, are they doing an amazing job of it? I don't want to be too critical here because they're operating on low information. But like the idea that no, you gotta spend money to make money. There's a little bit of that. Yes, you want to do infrastructure, build out. But the idea that negative margins are good, bigger is better, etc. Like these are weird. These are weird things to be pumping your LPs on. All this investment is coming in early on. And I think you'll start to see late stage growth funds pop up for AI as well. But it's kind of early or easier to spin up the early stage, and the Series A and that type of thing. They're smaller amounts to raise. You can probably close them faster. Also, you're getting those companies early, right? And then you'll structure your funds to invest in those companies later as they're successful. So watch out for this, okay? There will be AI-focused funds now, and there will be blog posts galore, by VCs that are fully Dunning-Krugered, and saying like, I just had this brilliant idea. Of course, that brilliant idea was had 5, 10, 20 years ago with people who were working on machine learning then. But nevertheless, they had this brilliant idea, and they're writing the blog post about it and saying how AI is going to work. I see it in X all day now. I'm sorry. But anyway, you're going to see a whole bunch of that. Be ready for that. Maybe be a little tolerant of it. Maybe shut off X or the TV or whatever. When you're like, wait a second, this person who has only been working on AI for the last year is trying to tell me how it's all going to work. Like maybe seek other advice. Next up, OpenAI released a browser, and it's called Atlas. I would put this in the category of there's like not really a consensus yet on whether it's amazing or whatever. It's clear this is meant to compete with Perplexity's browser, and general idea with browsers here is this goes back years too with it used to be mainframe computers, right? Big computers, you had a terminal, you typed into it. Okay, that was not internet times, right? And then internet times came around, and that was a desktop computer, okay? Everybody had these beige CRT screens, and they're clicking on it, and they're on their IRC chat and doing all of that, going to a Pepsi.com website and thinking it's awesome. That was a screen, okay? Literally a screen. This is terminology that people at companies like Google and others use in order to understand the interfaces that people are interacting with. And for the most part, it's been screens, okay? It was desktops, okay? Then it was laptops, right? Then it was mobile phones, iPads, etc. These are all screens. And it's a watch, it's a screen. The new Meta display glasses, screen, all right? Screen is really important because humans are visual creatures where we also listen to things as well and touch things, but like we're very visual. And so when you have a screen, you have a certain amount of real estate on it. This is maybe 14 inches diagonal. So you got, maybe a square foot of real estate here. When you're building a product, if it's just an API, that's not right in anybody's face, right? So there's a war for getting real estate on people's screens. So that could be an app icon on your mobile phone's like homepage. But what is the biggest screen that people use most of the time when they're on their laptops, at least, and a lot of time when they're on their phone? It's the browser. Yes, you got a screen, but the browser is filling it up, and you're navigating, and you're clicking, and you're searching, and you're going to ChatGPT, and you're doing this and that, right? But going to ChatGPT's website, utilizing it, let's say, or Anthropic Claude, or going to Perplexity's website, that's cool and all. But you can also go to other websites, or you can like the browser in that case is created, for instance, like by the most popular browser in the world is Google Chrome, and so Google actually controls that. So when you type in the search box up top, it takes you to the Google search. It doesn't take you to ChatGPT, right? When you're going to open a new tab in your browser, that opens a new tab, and that's a very opinionated thing. It could be a website, but in the vision of OpenAI or Perplexity, that might not be a website that you open. It might be an agent that you open, or it might be some AI task that you open, right? And so he who controls the browser, controls a lot here, right? And so this is why these browser wars are coming up. So Perplexity's got a browser, Google's got a browser, Bing will probably have a browser soon. Maybe I'm just unaware of a new one that they're coming out with. Now OpenAI has Atlas. And I think everybody's just kind of saying, listen, these are the early days. There's bugs. There's security issues. I think one of the big things that Google did well, and just other browsers did well too, but is they figured out that every tab that's open in your browser should not be able to talk to the other tabs. Okay, so if you open one website and then you open another website and another tab, and that one of the websites has code running on it, it can't ask, like, what other websites does this person have open? Give me some info, right? What's their password over here? What information do they have displayed over there, et cetera? It can't. There's like a blood-brain barrier here. Okay, it's like you can't pass it, and so these are security features that are built into the browsers. But when AI companies like Perplexity or like OpenAI are building these browsers, now you start to have a lot of questions, right? Like the original browser was built in this way so that you couldn't, it was compartmentalized. You couldn't have this data flow across boundaries. Is that going to continue to happen here? Probably not with agent use, right? When you have an agent that can use your browser, use your computer, or that type of thing, it's looking at everything that you're looking at. It can open a new tab. It can look in it and say like, ooh, here's the information that I wanted, et cetera. So there's going to be all of this these security concerns, maybe problems, but certainly concerns that people are going to have. I think this one is like a just wait and see here. I'll pull up a video here and take a look at it because I've been told that it'll be great if I react to this. So let's see.
Yesterday, OpenAI stepped into the web browser Thunderdome with the release of Atlas, their new AI-powered browser built around ChatGPT. And although I had anniversary plans, I imagine this is just how John Muir felt when he said, "The comments are calling and I must go." The idea for Atlas is pretty simple. Fork Chromium and Vibe add ChatGPT into it as an assistant that can see, remember, and help with anything you need. Like imagine you wanted to eat food. To do that, you'd usually have to go to the DoorDash app and go through the work of ordering it yourself like a prehistoric hunter-gatherer. But now with Atlas, you can just tell it exactly what you want to eat and it'll do the work for you. Augustus Gloop himself couldn't have designed a better experience. Of course, Atlas is only available on Mac, but thankfully my neighbor is an unemployed JavaScript developer, so I was able to borrow his to check it out. It is October 22nd, 2025, and you're watching the Code Report. As a believer of the free and open web, there's nothing I'd enjoy more than to hear that OpenAI pushed Codex to its limits and built a new engine and browser from scratch. But like almost all new browsers lately, Atlas is just a fork of Chromium, Google's free and open source web browser. According to the keynote,
yeah, let's pause this here for a second. Chrome is Google's browser. Chromium is the open source version of Chrome that they put on Linux machines and that type of thing. If you want to create your own browser, sure, you could go through the effort of creating your own browser, or you could just take Chromium, rebadge it as something else, add a few features to it, and fork that off, and then say, you have a new browser. So this is what happened here. Let's continue.
Didn't want it to just feel like Chrome with ChatGPT bolted on. And after playing with it for a little bit, I can confidently say that's exactly how it feels. Sam Altman even told me they completely reinvented the way a browser is used. But I think the reality is that they mostly just copied Perplexity Comet. Despite that, there are still some cool parts to it. Because it can see everything you do, it's able to use your browsing history as context when you ask it questions. Now, I know that sounds like a horrible violation of your privacy, but you are able to control what it remembers and delete certain memories if you need to. And as you saw earlier with the DoorDash order, agent mode lets ChatGPT take actions on your behalf. It does feel a bit like watching a disabled pirate try to use a mouse for the first time, but as I told my wife on our honeymoon, the experience improves with practice. But of course, agentic-powered browsers don't have the best track record when it comes to privacy or security. Earlier this year, a team at Brave was able to successfully orchestrate a prompt injection in Perplexity's Comet AI browser by embedding malicious instructions inside of an image that would get triggered when a screenshot was taken of it and analyzed by the model.
Yeah, let's pause here. So yeah, this is interesting. So if you understand the underlying models that these browsers are using to understand the world, then you can sort of reverse engineer or hack them to get them to do what you want. So for instance, like if you wanted to stop a self-driving car from driving down the road, you could paint a sign that looks like a child standing in the middle of the road and string it across, just on fabric or something, and string it across the road. And then the car would stop. And you'd be like, whoa, okay. We hacked the underlying system there, saying, we know that you're looking for children. You don't want to run them over, self-driving car. And so you're going to stop in the middle of the road if you see a child. Of course, it's not actually a child, right? If you could somehow understand how the bits and bytes are being processed in that car's camera, you don't even have to make the sign. You don't have to paint it. You could just morph what it thinks it's sensing, right? And so anyway, like what's happening here with the browser is they create an image that looks like just a normal image, but they adversarially figure out what the underlying model is looking for, and then they slightly adjust that image in order to get the output that they want in that model. So that output, you might, look at it and say, like, it's a picture of a tree. That's what a human would do. But the underlying model will get all these instructions, like they've just been activated as a sleeper cell, and say, okay, start a new agent task to go do these other things, send Bitcoin to somebody, that type of thing. So yeah, this is what they're talking about, just malicious embedding in an otherwise benign looking type image or audio file or video or text spacing or all sorts of things that may be imperceptible to a human, but will bias the model to act a certain way.
Which coins itself as the world's first agentic browser, was also vulnerable to a prompt injection simply by instructing the model to visit a website with the malicious instructions. Because your browser usually contains highly sensitive cookies and data, the team at Brave's ultimate takeaway was that indirect prompt injection is not an isolated issue, but a systemic challenge facing the entire category of AI-powered browsers, who, as Benjamin Franklin, who famously said, that those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. But old Benjamin Unbuttoned was always down for a good time, and I'm pretty sure even he detected the trade in his entire digital privacy and security for an easier way to word Taco Bell, like the new Flamin' Hot colon collapser grilled burrito, available for a limited time at participating U.S. Taco Bell locations. If you want to avoid this temptation, the browser that's being worked on is Ladybird. Unlike the others, it's fully independent and recreating both the engine and browser from scratch without using code from any other existing browser. It's an incredibly ambitious project, but they just recently passed the 90% threshold on web platform tests, which makes them eligible to be an alternative browser engine on iOS. But though Ladybird doesn't have any AI aspirations, every developer and company out there is trying to build the next big AI product. But the hard truth is that your LLM is basically worthless without a good search engine, which is why you need to check out Melee Search, the small search engine.
Okay.
It's a restful soup.
Thanks. Yeah. So, there's a little license taken there, but nevertheless, yeah, it's a problem right now. Do you create the browser from scratch? Do you just take what's off the shelf and modify it? I think taking what's off the shelf and modifying it right now is fine, but the idea here is you need to understand, or you need to discover and understand the usage patterns of people and what they actually want to do. Now, an original browser didn't have all these safety features in it. Cars didn't have seatbelts in them to start with. And then, some things started to happen. You're like, wait a minute, my data was snooped over here. We should probably put some firewalls in there for the data. Or, accidents are happening. People are getting hurt. Why don't we put safety belts in cars, et cetera? We kind of need to let that process happen here a little bit. Now, if you're the guinea pig, if you want to ride around in the car, with no roll bar, going 100 miles per hour with no seatbelt and bad brakes, install these right now and go down that path. Put all of your do all your standard browsing in them, YOLO, etc. But if you're like, well, maybe I don't want all of that, then you probably just wait it out a little bit. Wait for some new announcements to be made. You're probably not missing out on a ton. I would say, though, if you're using your browser for a lot of work that you're doing, then you might want to kind of sequester the information and say, like, hey, I'm using this browser in order to do a bunch of work. Whatever happens over there, let it burn, doesn't matter. But if you are using your own personal information, doing bank stuff, et cetera, use some other browser. Don't go down that path. That's probably a good way to behave for the next year, I would say. Our friend Stephen Colbert, in one of his last shows here, I think he's about to go off the air, but wanted to comment on AI. Let's see what he's got to say.
Folks, despite the fact that every AI company is telling us that AI is going to be great for everybody, and wouldn't we like to use AI, many experts are worried about an AI bubble in the stock market, which would be a disaster because presently the AI industry is 17 times the size of the dot-com frenzy, okay? That was 25 years ago, and that crash was so bad, a lot of us had to take our pets.com to a farmupstate.org.
So let's pause it. So pets.com it's like Chewy today, or similar to Instacart, or what the Amazon like food delivery from Whole Foods or whatever now. But this is 25 years ago, basically. It was too early, and had a lot of investment. And they had the Super Bowl ad, and they had the PR and everything that go with it, but they had no demand. Basically, they were just telling the world, like, you're going to want all of this, and the world was like, I don't want it. And they were right for the time, right? Stevens equating this to that, like, hey, we're putting all this investment in now. We're saying everybody wants AI, and you want AI, don't you? And everybody's like, no, not really. Now, the founders and folks that are thinking about this vision of the future for AI being in everything and helping us, et cetera, they're not wrong. It's going to be in everything. It's just like it's 1900 and somebody comes up to you and says, you want electricity, right? You want refrigeration, right? You want cars, right? You're like, I don't know what any of those things are. I like my horse. I like my block of ice in my wooden ice box. No, I don't really want those. But then, of course, fast forward 40 years, and Grandma's got a refrigerator, and she loves it, and she's driving around in the long and black Cadillac. She's fine with it. But it takes a while for people to understand why they would want it, figure out what things are worth spending on, and then go down that path. So anyway, love that pets.com reference. Let's go.
Some of you are old enough to remember. So, with the threat of a bubble, it's not surprising that big AI firms out there are trying to raise cash by getting dirty. For instance, OpenAI will now allow verified adults to use ChatGPT to generate erotic content. No. Why do we need a robot to make our erotica? There are thousands upon thousands of randy humans writing the best.
Okay, if people are wondering, is OpenAI a consumer-focused company or a business-focused company? They just answered it right there, right? Like, they've been answering it. They're creating the browser. They're allowing you to generate adult content. I think this is fine. Whatever, AI is going to be used for this kind of thing. It's fine. But it's OpenAI. They're signaling, where their head is at. If you want serious, scaled LLM, audio, text, other tools for your business, just take a look at what they actually do, not what they say, right? Steven's doing a pretty good job of characterizing the world right now, and certainly at least the fears that people have. Like, man, we're putting all this investment in, all the GDP growth in the U.S. comes from AI, et cetera. Yeah, I get that. I get the fear about that. I get the fear of the financial, like junk bond, mortgage crisis, et cetera, that type of thing. AI is a little bit different. AI is more like the electricity revolution. It's more like the steam engine. It's more like internal combustion. It's more like the internet. Now, it's right for people to question the timing, and many investors and many founders are going to get the timing wrong, absolutely. But measured infrastructure investment to provide AI to do the tasks that people already demand, those are really safe, good, scaling businesses with tons of demand right now. That's not going anywhere. There's some concern warranted. Absolutely, there are some mistakes that are going to be made. There's a lot of value to it, though. This is not like the crypto NFT bubble. This is not like that at all. Okay. We got another one from Google here. They worked with Yale researchers to validate a hypothesis about cancer cells. So they released a milestone. They say that there's a model that they created, C2S scale 27B. To anybody who's confused about these B parameters, means 27 billion parameters. On the general scale of models today, that's like 10 or 20 times smaller than flagship models. So it's a fairly small model, but it's more like a mid-sized model. Small models would be something like 1 billion parameters, 4 billion parameters, 8 billion parameters, maybe 10 billion parameters. So this is kind of small, medium-ish size model. But the idea behind this model is to help it generate new hypotheses about cancer cell behavior. So speaking in sort of hand-wavy, round ways, the researchers would train this model to understand cell sentences, these single-cell profiles and raw molecular data. And then it can interpret the cellular communication in context. That's the idea, which allows it to learn the language of cells. So they're really taking a lot of license here and describing it this way because it's a language model. They're saying like the cells are talking to each other, like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, whatever. And don't get me wrong, they are signaling to each other. But this is more like in an aggregate type setting, et cetera. But nevertheless, who cares about the underlying mechanisms and how the PR team is spinning it in order to get us to be interested? They claim that it made a hypothesis that was later validated in living human cells. So this kind of goes against like what was claimed, or the sentiment that was expressed by the DeepMind CEO about the OpenAI Erdos problem type thing, where they're like the frontier is not being discovered quite yet. Well, I think actually maybe in math that's true, but in cancer cell research, that type of thing, there are a few little nibbles that are being made. Chalk up some little wins here for the LLMs, for the models that are being produced. Pour one out for the fired superintelligence lab people and the Erdos problems. There's a lot more to go there. That's it for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll see you in a little bit.